Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome if you're new. So today we're going to be talking about coronavirus. It's the reason why, everything has changed basically in the world. It's literally changed everything as we know it. So I'm just going to be doing a little coronavirus 101, everything you need to know about the disease, what you need to do to protect yourself from getting it, what's currently happening in terms of research that's been done and scientists. So yeah, let's get straight into the video. So coronavirus. I'm going to start by naming the disease firstly and going through the name of how it's been called COVID-19 now. So basically, please forgive me if I look down. I'm just looking down at my notes so I don't forget anything. So basically, coronavirus. So what is coronavirus? So first of all, coronavirus is a broad term which is used for a family of viruses belonging to the corona family. So in this coronavirus that we're experiencing, which causes the COVID-19 disease, it's actually caused by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So SARS-CoV-2, if you're infected with that, then you have COVID-19, which is the disease that is caused by SARS-CoV-2. So basically, if we look at it in an HIV context, basically the HI virus, which is the human immunodeficiency virus, causes AIDS. So it causes the disease AIDS. So similarly, in what we're experiencing now, SARS-CoV-2, which is a severe acute respiratory syndrome 2, causes COVID-19, so it causes that disease. So basically, the origin of coronavirus, so where does it come from? So as we all know, scientists have traced the virus back to China in a wet seafood market in Wuhan. So that is where the first a person that had frequented that market got infected with with SARS-CoV-2 and then got the COVID-19 disease. So however, there have been genomic comparisons. So one of the first things that was done when this coronavirus outbreak happened is that scientists quickly sequenced the genome. So sequencing the genome of the virus literally means finding out what its DNA is, so how the virus looks in terms of its bases that it has. So basically, sequencing means that we are looking at the virus now on a genetic level. So that's the first thing that was done with this outbreak. Scientists quickly sequenced the genome of this SARS-CoV-2, which causes the COVID-19 disease. So in sequencing, I think they did it super quickly. It was within a matter of 2 weeks, we already had sequences deposited in a kind of sequence database, which is openly available to everyone. If you just Google the sequence of coronavirus, you would definitely find it. So they sequenced it, and they suggest that the virus was actually a recombination of 2 viruses. So that's why it's called SARS-CoV-2, because it's said to be a recombination of a virus that caused SARS, which was a different outbreak in the early 2000s, and the coronavirus. So moving on to, still on its origin, but coronavirus is a zoonotic virus, which means that it's actually a virus that infects animals, which is why when it originated from a wet market in China, that was not unusual, because coronaviruses usually affect animals. Or infect animals. So because it's a zoonotic virus, it doesn't easily move from humans to animals. So when it does that, it usually needs an intermediate host. So in this case, for coronavirus, it's been suggested that it infected bats, and then its intermediate host was the Pongolia, which is it's a very unusual animal actually for us in South Africa, but it's what can I say it looks like? It looks like, if you guys watch Phineas and Ferb, it literally looks like Ferb. So it looks like a little rat cat thing with a long tail. not too long. Yeah, so that's basically what a pongolia is. So that's the virus, came from a seafood market, a wet market in China, and it moved from being infecting animals to humans through a human actually eating an animal that was infected with this virus. So if you are infected with SARS-CoV-2, what are the kind of symptoms that a lot of people have been experiencing? So the normal one is fever. Fever has really been pushed a lot, and even in the sense of screening, because it's easy to do. You just take someone's temperature. However, I'm not too convinced about the efficacy of that, because not everybody that becomes infected has a fever, but that's a pretty common symptom. Fever, tiredness, dry cough, aches and pains. In a recent study, actually, it's been where they showed that people that were infected actually reported lack of taste and lack of smell. Very interesting. So that too. So who are the people that are most at risk of getting infected? It's usually older people, which is what we really saw in Italy with the pandemic in Italy, where it was really devastating. And that was because Italy has an older population. So Italy has a longer life expectancy than most countries, so that's why we saw a lot of deaths there, because old people are vulnerable to getting infected. People, young children also are also vulnerable. People who are immunocompromised, or people who actually have a history of other respiratory illnesses, so lung disease, asthma. People with heart problems are also definitely at risk of more at risk than a healthy individual. And when I say a healthy individual, I mean someone who doesn't have any pre-existing conditions, someone who's not old, and someone who's just generally in good health. If that person should not be at risk of getting it, but even if they do get it, they have higher chances of recovery than people with pre-existing conditions and older or younger people. So the coronavirus, this COVID-19, is mostly spread through close contact with people. And this is why it's so important what we're doing right now with the social distancing, the lockdown, and all these restrictions that have been put in place to limit person-to-person interaction, is because it's spread so easily through close contact with other humans. So it's spread through small droplets which are expelled from your nose and mouth. And this is why you should also not be in close contact with people who are visibly showing symptoms, because if they cough, sneeze, anything that comes out of their mouth and goes into your mouth, that is how you would become infected. So it's primarily spread through close contact like that. However, with the spreading of these droplets, so usually when a person sneezes, the droplets only go a certain distance. So they only go a certain distance, and then they fall to the ground because they're heavy. So they fall to the ground, and then that also poses another risk for how it can be spread, because if you touch objects or anything where a person has sneezed, and then you touch your nose, your face, your hands, your eyes, then that is how you will become infected. So that's why washing your hands is super, super, super important. Wash your hands all the time, especially if you've been in public. You don't realize subconsciously you touch things. Even if you've been doing grocery shopping, someone may have touched something and put it back down. So make sure you wash your hands, and do not touch your face when you're in public. Do not touch your face at all. It's actually crazy, because yesterday I saw a fact that the average human actually touches their face 20 times an hour. In 1 hour, you touch your face 20 times. So it's really, really important that you do not touch your face. If you've been out, if you've been touching surfaces, make sure you wash your hands always before you touch your face. And I know it's really, really difficult, because it's something that we do subconsciously. So yeah, and that brings me to my next point, which is the mask debate. A lot of people, when the pandemic started, really just went out and bought masks. Everybody wanted to get a mask, and that's how they became in short supply for like doctors and practices like that. And I was actually very against the use of masks in the beginning, because if you're not ill, you don't need to wear a mask. The whole point of a mask for just the public is if you're sick yourself, you wear a mask to protect people around you. So whatever comes out of your mouth is captured by the mask, which is why I was really kind of not into everyone wearing masks in the beginning. And also they could also serve as a source of contamination, because you touch your mask and you think because you've been wearing a mask, you know, you touch it, you take it off, and then whatever has been on the mask, you touch your face, you continue to touch your face, you touch other surfaces, and there could actually be virus on your actual mask. But now, because you know, kind of where we are in the dynamics of the virus, it's actually compulsory for you to wear a mask when you're out, which is fine also with me. And I'm glad that they've also said that you can have cloth masks, so any 3-layer mask, and all of that is great. So if you're going out in public, make sure you wear a mask, do not touch your face, wash your hands always, all the time before you know, even little things. Like I realized that even after I came back and I've been washing my hands and then I touched my, you know, the car door or anything, you actually don't realize how many things you touch subconsciously and then not wash your hands and then want to continue on with your day. So literally just wash your hands like you're a crazy person. Yeah, so I've done how you can protect yourself and stuff, and then I really wanted to touch on these terms that have kind of been being thrown around, and that's self-isolation, quarantine, and social distancing. So what is the difference basically between these three terms? So self-isolation means separating people who are ill. So this is people who are actually presenting with symptoms, separating them completely, so putting them in isolation from normal people. And this is really difficult, especially in our country, because if people become sick and they live with other people, it's really hard for them to self-isolate. So then quarantine, what does quarantine mean? Quarantine means restricting activities or separating people who are not ill themselves but may have been exposed to the virus. So this is something that I had to do when I returned from the States in late March. I had to quarantine. So I had to not go out and, you know, be and interact with people in public, because I came from a high-risk country, because the US was said to be a high-risk country, and I was possibly exposed to the virus. So that's why when I came back, I had to quarantine. So that's what quarantine means. It means that you have to stay indoors and restrict activity for 14 days. So that's for about 2 to 3 weeks, I'd say. 14 to 21 days, to make sure that you don't develop any symptoms and that you're actually healthy, even if you've been exposed to the virus. And then social distancing, we're all familiar with. That's just distancing yourself from people and making sure that you don't go to large gatherings, etc. So moving on to the more sciencey part that excites me, is there a drug or treatment for this, or a vaccine for this COVID-19 that we're facing today? The answer is yes and no. So it's no for the vaccine part. There is no vaccine for COVID-19. However, there are certain treatments which people are using, and that's how people go into recovery. So if you look at our statistics, it's like, you know, the number of people that are infected, deaths, and recovery. So those are people that have received treatment. And a drug that's really been at the forefront or getting a lot of media attention, and this is something that I watched Dr. Fauci say. Interestingly, he has also really been involved in HIV research, and I have referenced him so many times. So it was interesting to see him now speaking about coronavirus. So he speaks of the remdesivir, which is an antiviral drug. So what an antiviral drug does is that it disrupts the replication of a virus. So in theory, it should work, right? But it has not been super effective like we had hoped it would be, but it significantly reduces a person's recovery time from 15 days, I think, to 11 days. So that's a significant p-value for all the scientists that are watching. So when a p-value is significant, it means that there's a real difference between the data. So there's a real difference between a person taking 15 days to recover and a person taking 11 days to recover. So remdesivir has really been in the forefront in terms of treatment. Also looking at the diagnostic part, which is also a really, really major thing, is that the lab that I was at was actually working on a diagnostic tool using the CRISPR-Cas system. So a CRISPR-Cas system is basically used for genome editing. So that's basically changing the DNA within a person. So that's what they were looking at. But I'm sure you guys are all aware of the way people are tested for coronavirus today, as it has been in the media, and it's super uncomfortable. I've been tested for it, and the reason it has to be like that is because the tool that they use for sample collection has to get all the way right to the really, really back of your throat and nasal cavity. So that's where they need to get the sample, and that's why it's super uncomfortable. It's super uncomfortable to even watch, and when I got tested, my eyes started watering immediately. So ongoing research efforts, I'm sure you guys are aware, it's been in the media. Scientists are working tirelessly all around the world to look for a vaccine, to look for effective treatment, and people are really working in record time in producing all the data that's been produced. To date, there are actually 85 registered studies. So these are studies that are actually going to that show prospects of moving into clinical trials in China alone. I'm sure that there are hundreds or even thousands globally. Just looking at the top 4 stories for the week, it's been shown that coronavirus survivors' plasma could actually save lives. So this is because people who become infected with coronavirus, they can produce antibodies which confer a protection or immunity to getting infected again. So how can we use the plasma of the survivors to infuse antibodies into people that already are infected, or could it possibly even be used in vaccine studies? So when people who are already infected now have these antibodies, this will also speed up their recovery. And also for vaccine studies, can we be intravenously, giving people antibodies so that their body now creates these antibodies itself, and this can confer an immunity against the virus. So another story which has been in the news is that coronaviruses can infect cats, actually, but cat owners and pet owners shouldn't be alarmed by this, because there's no direct evidence that an infected cat can infect a human. And this was another thing that I mentioned earlier about the zoonotic viruses. A virus that has infected an animal does not easily jump and infect a human. Another study is about whether coronavirus is airborne or not, and that means, does the virus actually hang in the air? So as opposed to being carried on small droplets, which that has been proven, but does the virus actually hang in the air? And that's why I think a lot of people went and wanted to be masked up immediately, because there was some speculation that coronavirus can actually hang in the air. So WHO says that it's only transmitted through droplets, so they actually haven't confirmed that it actually hangs in the air. I personally don't think that it hangs in the air, because that means that literally when we breathe, we become infected with coronavirus. So yeah, that's kind of what's been happening in the research and the scientific part of coronavirus. But yeah, I just wanted to do this kind of coronavirus 101. So I hope you learned something from this video. I hope you're going to wash your hands like a ridiculous amount of times a day. Practice social distancing. Stay at home. If you don't need to go outside, do not go outside. I mean, the longer, the more we go against these restrictions and go outside and want to be social, you know, the longer we're gonna have stricter restrictions. So we're not gonna be moving to level 1 anytime soon if we don't follow all these things. So I really hope that you guys stay home and you stay safe, and I hope that you learned something from this video. And if there's anything else you want to know about coronavirus, feel free to comment down below, ask me questions, connect with me on social media, send me a DM, anything that you guys want to know that I haven't really covered. I didn't want to go into too much detail. I just wanted to do kind of a broad coronavirus 101, where the virus came from, you know, how it's COVID-19, and it actually is COVID-19 because it's coronavirus 2019, because the first case was in the 31st of December 2019. And basically what's been happening in the R&D part, so the research part. And yeah, so that's it for this video. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and I will see you guys on the next video. And stay home, stay safe.